So first question I have for you, does mobile carry different user expectations, particularly on the optimization and velocity front?
I think the biggest challenge with mobile today is that there's very little public data to actually answer that scientifically, which is a huge problem for our industry. If we look at where we're at on the desktop slash web, the way we conceive of it today, we, Steve, and others have pioneered data. That data has gone mainstream, primarily because we've had tools to analyze it, and now we're making a difference and it's becoming accepted. That same process has to happen on mobile, and it's got to happen a lot faster than it did in the desktop world. So the answer is, we've done some preliminary studies which suggest, yes, there's a difference. I think a longitudinal study is actually what we need to see, is that distance getting closer, and we don't have the data. Apple has the data. Other companies have the data, and people aren't sharing it. And it's just so important for our industry to share, so that we all are on the same playing field. So I would say, I don't know. I think yes. Intuitively, it makes sense that yes, but I don't have the scientific data to back it up yet.
Okay. So this may be a premature question, but are there mobile benchmarks that should be considered yet?
I think we have to collect the data first before we start setting benchmarks. One of the things that we've seen in our industry is that these benchmarks are helpful, but they also can hurt. And they can hurt because if the benchmark is set too high, then we are developing features or buying products that are too expensive because they don't return the investment. So we have to get the benchmarks around performance. We have to get the benchmarks around conversion and whatever that means to you. And then we can make decisions about where the benchmark can be. So I would say too early, but it's never too early to start collecting the data. What is your curve? If you went from 5 seconds to 8 seconds, how much more money do you make? Or 8 seconds to 5 seconds, how much more money do you make?
Sure.
You need to be able to answer that question to make any rational decisions about where to invest in performance.
Now, you've been involved in some long-term research.
We have.
On acceleration and
Indeed.
business benefits.
Correct.
Can you share some of the results from what you've learned so far?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the first result is it's bloody hard to get customers to talk about their data. That's the first result, is I've had to give bottles of wine away. I've had to sit in meetings where I beg CEOs to say, this is good for you. It won't hurt you. So number one, that's what I've learned. The other thing that we've learned, and the most important thing, is that for I like to call them mortal companies, not an organization where you can rouse an army of developers that will focus on things that might not have an ROI, where you just have the time. And that's not to say Google, Yahoo, Amazon are wasting their time. It's to say they can afford to invest in some of the future, whereas some of the other companies can't. What we find with the mortal companies is that there is a huge payback for performance improvement. We're seeing, one of our companies like Auto Anything, 9% increase in conversion. And then you have to times that by a 6% increase in cart size to equal what their revenue would be. If I can go to an executive and say, I can increase your revenue, your conversion by 9% and your cart size by 6%, by acceleration, that's compelling. We see similar stats from J.C. Whitney. We just got a stat recently around search. We have a company, Everyday Health, that we work with. They have a very popular site called whattoexpect.com, where they found the number of Google searches increase. In other words, by acceleration, the bot was able to look at 2 times more pages in the same period of time. And they found, since they implemented acceleration, that their search rankings are up 10%. So 10% search rankings, conversion improvement, cart size improvement, the chance that people are buying on first click, all are directly correlated to performance. So really exciting stuff from my perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned mortal companies, right? Is there one initial thing that those mortal companies should be focusing on right now? Is it a suite of things, or is there just one thing that they could do that could yield some of those benefits that you're talking about?
Yeah, I think the first thing is to set some kind of benchmark, so to understand performance. And when I say understand performance, I mean really from the user's perspective. There's so many tools out there, and those tools are good, that tell you what it looks like from the elbow of the internet over fiber from some really high-powered ISP. What we really need is what we recommend to our customers is you need to see what your users see, and what your users see isn't what your database administrator looks at, because they're probably in the same building as your server. You need to get the perspective of your real user. So that would be the first thing. And then there's definitely some low-hanging fruit. Everyone should have compression on. Everyone should be keep alives. What we see with performance is that there's some easy stuff, It gets progressively harder and more expensive, and progressively harder and more expensive. So yes, there's some stuff that absolutely every site in the world should do. It would take you 2 clicks, either in a configuration on a load balancer in your server, and you'll be faster. Right. It's the other stuff that is really hard.
Right. Now, last question I have for you. You ran a workshop, right? Correct. And in the workshop, you analyzed an unsuspecting site.
We did,
right?
Yes.
Can you share what the site was?
Sure. We actually did the Velocity site.
Okay,
we did
great.
the Velocity
That's a good
homepage
one.
because we thought it would be a good. Well, one, O'Reilly's a customer. Mm-hmm. You know, they've bought us, so we had a relationship.
Sure.
And 2, our intention wasn't to embarrass the site. So what we actually did is we took the O'Reilly site, made it worse than it is in the real world, brought it back to where it was, and made it better. Because the intention was to show that that was the process. So yeah, O'Reilly's the Velocity homepage.
So, were there any big revelations from that process? Do you feel like that people came away from that going, okay, I think I understand these reference points now?
I certainly hope so. I mean, what we tried to do is provide enough data so that they could do that. So that I think in 90 minutes, when you're presenting something that a normal organization would do in 4 months, although it doesn't have to take that long, but if you're going to do it by hand, this is probably a 4-month, couple-person project. We compress it, so there's a lot of data. The feedback that we've got since then has been overwhelmingly positive, which is this is helpful. Slide deck's been downloaded a few hundred times already, and it's a day out. So yeah, I hope so. Sure. You never know when you're up there, right?
Right.
You never know. But so far, so good.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much for coming today. I really appreciate it.
Take care.
Great.